welcome back to the Aerobic Garden YouTube channel. My name is Vito. How are you, Sagi? Thank you for watching the previous videos. If you haven't, please feel free to go watch them. In today's video, I'm going to talk about all things apartment gardening. Now, about 1.2 billion people live in rented apartments. That is a lot, and there are over, I think, 30 million people. These are actual stats, you can look them up. Living in apartments here in the US and in many other parts of the world. And I feel like if people are going to live in apartments, then people should be able to grow in apartments. And I want to use this video to share about everything you need to know and consider when growing in an apartment. Whether you live on the ground floor or you live on the topmost floor, the middle floor, all of those things. Wherever you are, whether you're in a townhome, you have a garage, you have a little bit of an entryway space, or you don't have that, whatever the case may be, one of these things will apply to you. So, if this is interesting to you and you feel like you can learn from it, please continue watching. Now, when you are considering starting an apartment, one of the first things you should consider, and I have some notes here just in case you see me looking down. First is the floor. What floor are you on? Are you on the ground floor? Are you on the second floor, third floor, whatever the case may be? So I'm going to divide this into those on the ground floor and those on other floor. Now, if you're on the ground floor, there are some things you should consider. Do you have space by your entrance, or do you have space in the balcony? And if you're also on the ground floor, you may have access to some ground growing space. That's something you should check. If you do have access to some in-ground growing space, and I will insert a picture here or a short video so you can see what my space looks like, because I'm on the ground floor. Then you might be able to get permission from the apartment company or management to maybe take out whatever plants they have growing in a small area and then grow in there. So that's something to consider. If you're on the ground floor, you may have access to some in-ground growing space. If you don't have that, you might have some entryway space. By entryway, I mean the space just in front of your door, right by your door, that space. You might be able to grow, you'll be able to plant some things there. The other place you can grow would be in your balcony or in your patio, whatever you call it, that space. Then if you're on other floors, you want to consider your balcony, because you most likely don't have any in-ground growing space. You just have access to your balcony. So you have your balcony. Actually, in some apartments, you can, plant in containers, even if you're on the first floor, or rather, if you're on the second or third floor. If you have a garage, you may have some space right in front of the garage for like little ground spaces that you can put containers in, and that will not be a problem for your apartment. So that's something you should consider. That's one. Two, you will most likely have a balcony. The size of the balcony would vary depending on what type of apartment you are in. So if that balcony, the next thing to consider would be how much space do I have in, whether it's the entryway, the balcony, front of your garage, some in-ground growing space, whichever one of these four you have. You want to consider how much space do I have, because that will determine what things you decide to grow, right? Next thing to consider will be the weight. If you are on another floor, there are certain ways of growing that may not work as well on certain floors because of the weight. So you want to consider that. If you are planning to have really heavy plants or lots of soil, all of those things, it may not be appropriate for the weight of the balcony. So that's something for you to consider. May or may not be an issue depending on where you live and how the apartments are built and all of those things. So that's something to consider. The next would be the amount of sunlight that you get. And this is a very important thing to consider, because your plants need light. So you want to know how much sunlight does the growing area that I have per day, right? So your balcony, am I able to get 6 hours of sunlight, or is it just 4? Is it completely shaded? Is it partially shaded? The amount of light you have in your space will determine how well or what you can plant, one, and how well those plants will grow, right? It doesn't mean you can't plant, certain things. Well, it does mean that, but you can plant something, they may not grow as well as if they had full sunlight, 6 to 8 hours of sunlight. So that's something for you to consider as well. In my space, I have a largely shaded area. In fact, I do not grow in my balcony area because it doesn't get any sunlight at all because of the way it's positioned. But I use my entryway and some in-ground growing space, and it gets roughly at an angle, let's say 4 hours of sunlight or more, right? Depending on the time of day and the time of the year as well. And so that has implied that has determined what I have chosen to grow, the expectations I have as to how well those plants will grow, and the ways I have arranged the plants. And I'll have a whole other video talking about growing in the shade, in partial sunlight, and all of those things. But that's something for you to consider. How much light does the space I have get how much sunlight does it get? The next thing will be access to water. So if you are going to plant in your balcony, it would be great to have a source of water, so a faucet or a tap from hopefully close to the balcony or right outside. If you don't have that, are you willing to get water from your sink or from the bathroom and take it outside to water your plants? If you are growing outside, do you have an outlet? Right? If you have an outlet, can you connect a hose to it to make your watering easier? That's something for you to consider. But you want to ensure that you have access to water. Right? The other thing with relation to water is if you are on other floors aside from the ground floor, whenever you water, if you grow in containers or whatever it is you're growing, the water is going to come out, right? Some of the water is supposed to come out, right? Whether you're growing in containers or in a raised bed, whatever it is, some of the water is supposed to come out. Where is that water going to go to? Are you going to have something to catch the water so that it doesn't just come out and then go to the floors beneath? Because you don't want to cause a nuisance. Every time you water is going down to other floors. That will be a problem, so you don't want that. That's something else for you to consider. The final one would be, this may or may not be an issue, would be birds and things that can come to your particular balcony. If you have a balcony that is positioned maybe close to where trash is, and so you have some of these birds that come and all of that, that may be something to consider, because depending on what you plant, you may have a lot of them coming to your garden. That isn't always pleasant. So that's something else to consider. So I'm going to summarize these so that you can remember them. One would be the floor. What floor are you on? And based on the floor you're on, what space do you have to garden? So whether it's in-ground growing space because you're on the ground floor, space close to your garage, right? Space by your entryway, or a balcony or patio. Which of these 4 do you have? And then in whichever one you have, if you are on other floors, what's the weight? How much can you grow in terms of not just the weight of the plants, but apart from the plants, there's a lot of soil that goes into gardening, right? If you're using containers, some containers are heavier than others. So if you're going to use really heavy containers, you want to consider the weight, especially because of structural integrity of the apartment you're in. If you don't have all those details, it's better to err to the side of caution and not do anything that will be too heavy. Right. The next, so we said floor, the available space, the weight, the amount of sunlight that you get in that location. That is very important. You want to know, and honestly, you can decide to do a check. So every hour or pick a day, you can start from 6 a.m. How much sunlight is this place getting? Take a picture. 6 a.m., 7 a.m., 8 a.m., all the way to, let's say, 6 p.m. or 7 p.m. This will give you an idea of how much sunlight you get. You can do that in 2 or 3 of the seasons in the year, and that will give you an overall view of how much sunlight you expect to get. Of course, you don't need to have all that information before you start, so please start. But that is something that is helpful as you go on, right? And then the access to water, that's something else to consider. The final thing is pests and other things, critters and things that can come to your garden. That's something to consider. An example in relation to this is, because I'm on the ground floor, this shouldn't be the case, but there was one time a dog had pooped in the little space that I grew. I had not even actually planted anything there, but I had prepared the space, and that threw me off for a little bit because there were flies and you don't want dog faces in your thing. So that's an example of pests. So it's not just birds, it can be dogs, it can be cat, it can be whatever, squirrel, name it. That's something for you to consider. So I hope this video has been helpful. I will share more about a lot of these other things, and if you have questions, please feel free to put them in the comment section. Don't forget to like the video. It's very important to help more people see the video, and please subscribe to the channel. We are on our way to 100 subscribers, and I'm excited for you to be one of them. All right, bye-bye. To the next video. Bye-bye.